Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the Millennial Mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. and on YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are now streaming 24/7 on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV. We have such a great show lined up for you today on this third weekend of 2023. In episode 94, we are a few episodes away from our 100th episode anniversary. Very exciting stuff. In our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by Navé, we're featuring Diana Falzone, contributor, editor for the Daily Beast. And today we're chatting life, career, infertility, and her amazing path to motherhood. In our Hello Open Metaverse by Animoca Brands, we're chatting with Joseph DeAcetis, men's fashion and style expert, CEO and founder of Potro Menswear. Today, he's joined by Vincent Quan, professor and department chair, fashion business management at FIT SUNY Korea. We're chatting all about where fashion is heading, how far it's come, and how it fits into Web 3.0. In our Trailblazers segment brought to you by ogpay.com, today we're featuring the amazing Eric LeGrand, motivational speaker, sports analyst, philanthropist, and author. He is joined by his dear friend, Dr. Harold Abaham, an accomplished college professor at Montclair State University and elementary school principal. Today we're chatting all about disabilities, how to overcome obstacles, and how to live your best life. In the Scandal segment brought to you by Revere Securities, we're featuring my dear friend Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Kamins, otherwise known as ABK Law. He's also a regular contributor and legal analyst on Line Crime and Court TV. Today we're chatting about the latest development on Brian Kohberger and the Idaho murders, chatting all about where this case is headed and is there enough evidence to put him away. Stay tuned for our Trailblazer segment brought to you by ogpay.com, featuring Eric LeGrand and Dr. Harold Abaham chatting overcoming obstacles, Team LeGrand, and adjusting to life in a wheelchair. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up in our Trailblazers segment brought to you by ogpay.com, today we're featuring Eric LeGrand, motivational speaker, sports analyst, author, disability ambassador, and advocate. He is joined by his good friend, Dr. Harold Abaham, an accomplished college professor at Montclair State University and elementary school principal. Now, someone that grew up and still has a learning disability, it's Dr. Abraham's goal to ensure that all students are supported. Impressively, he was appointed by Governor Phil Murphy to serve on the State Council for Special Education. Today, we're chatting disability awareness and overcoming obstacles. Now, a little bit of backstory will go a long way. Are you ready? In October of 2010, Rutgers University football star Eric LeGrand sustained a spinal cord injury in his C3 and C4 vertebrae during a fourth quarter play at MetLife Stadium. According to a recent study, there are nearly 1 in 50 people living with paralysis, approximately 5.4 million people, to put things into perspective. That's the same number of people as the combined populations of Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. And that number is nearly 40% higher than previous estimates showed. Now, we all know someone, a brother, a sister, a friend, a neighbor, or a colleague living with paralysis. These aren't strangers. They are only 1 degree of separation from all of us. Eric harnessed the national spotlight he attracted from his injury to give back to the community and inspire those living with and impacted by paralysis. Team LeGrand was launched in September of 2013 as a fundraising arm for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Since its inception, Team LeGrand has raised well over $2 million for the Reeve Foundation. Impressive. Welcoming now to the show is Dr. Harold Abaham and Eric LeGrand. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you both on. Eric, I'll start with you, okay? Your initial prognosis was grim, but you shattered all expectations for your recovery and rehabilitation. And during your time as a participant of the Reeve Foundation's Neuro Recovery Network, NRN, you took part in a rigorous rehabilitation regime, including locomotor training to reteach your body how to walk and improve your quality of life. Walk me through that experience, and how did you learn to adjust with life in a wheelchair?
Yeah, that experience was honestly incredible. I've had well over 500 sessions on that treadmill, and I always say that it kept my body healthy, it kept it strong. You know, just going through the natural movements of being able to stand up, the weight bearing in your legs, the blood circulation throughout your body, and doing those natural walking motions. It was able to keep myself strong. My body is still toned without having much muscle dystrophy. So it was definitely, muscle atrophy. So it was definitely helped me out an entire amount. And there's a lot of secondary complications that come with spinal cord injuries too, with just lung capacity and losing, some lung deficiency there. So being able to do that training helped me out a lot, but adjusting to life in a wheelchair was definitely eye-opening and different. But now 12 years into my injury, I try to help as many people out there in a similar situation as myself.
It's so beautiful. And anyone who has ever achieved something worthwhile has had challenges and setbacks, because anything that is worth doing is going to be difficult. So overcoming adversity is such a necessary step on the road to greatness. But paralysis is dramatically more widespread than previously thought. It's approximately 1.7% of the U.S. population. Like I said, close to 5.5 million people reported they were living with some form of paralysis. So what you are doing in this journey is extremely important and quite impressive. Dr. Abaham, thank you so much for introducing your friend Eric to our platform.
My pleasure. He's an inspiration.
He is. So this is a work in progress, and we are so thrilled here at WOR and iHeart to feature the both of you. Talk to me, Dr. Abaham. You grew up with a learning disability and taught yourself to navigate life fully aware of this. How has knowing Eric inspired you? And more importantly, why did you become an advocate of disability awareness yourself?
Yeah, well, growing up, I struggled with a learning disability. Contrary to belief, I really had a tough time in school. And it was only because of great teachers, coaches, and administrators that I was able to find the appropriate tools to become a successful learner. And I think over time, when you develop those skills, naturally you want to pay it forward and do what was done for you for other people. And I think Eric also shares those same sentiments, right? He's been able to take a really challenging situation and turn some of the challenges that he's been presented with into some incredible things and do so many kind things for people all around. So ultimately, that's a goal of mine.
It's great that you overcame this, but overcame it with such a positive attitude to be able to give back and instill this even with your students and peers. I take my hat off to you. Eric, spinal cord injuries alone cost roughly $40.5 billion annually, a 317% increase from costs estimated back in 1998, which was only $9.7 billion. So people living with paralysis are often unable to afford health insurance that adequately covers the complex complications that are commonly linked with these conditions. And like many of those living with chronic illness, they are frequently forced to rely on friends or family members to serve as their primary caregivers. How are your efforts paving the way for the disability community, and what is the most important task at hand for you?
Honestly, it's been a blessing to be able to work with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation because of these exact statistics that you just mentioned. Being able to work with them, I've been able to learn how to, our motto is today's care, tomorrow's cure. So our Paralysis Resource Center, which is now the National Paralysis Resource Center, helps educate these new injuries that happen, unfortunately, every single day, and being able to point them in the right direction. Obviously, you want to educate somebody on the situation, but point them in the right direction on different recoveries, different therapies, also the caregiving side that you just mentioned, because a lot of times when someone has a spinal cord injury, it's not your life that's just affected. It's also the caregiver side and being able to get the proper care that you need and knowing exactly what to look out for. Because I'm not going to lie to you, before my injury, I had no idea about the spinal cord injury community and all the things that go in it. And now that I'm a part of it, we always say it's a family that you don't want to join, but once you're in it, we got you for life and we try to help as much as possible. But those costs of just healthcare in general is just out of the roof, and it's very expensive. And I've seen some very unfortunate situations that have happened with spinal cord injury patients where they don't have the funds to be able to renovate a house, and now they're 25 years old living in a nursing home and things of that nature. And it's sad. So you try to do as much as you can to advocate for people and get certain bills passed, but also continuing to get funding towards this, because it could happen to anybody at any given time. It's not like a spinal cord injury discriminates. It's being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and your advocacy and your social activism for this in this particular case is extremely rewarding, not just to the community, but even to people like myself who found out about you and was completely in awe of how far you've come. Thanks, of course, to Dr. Abaham. But when you look at the stats, people living with paralysis have households with lower incomes. Roughly 28% of households with a person who is paralyzed makes than $15,000 per year. I mean, that's poverty line. So a lot of work is being done, but so much more has to be done. And so thank you for your contributions. Dr. Abaham, you are very much about setting the right example to your many students and peers. You clearly thrive on using life experiences to teach, advocate, and inspire, nonetheless pay it forward. Why is it so important for you to showcase the many faces of disability, and what message do you wish to give to the community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's so important for people to understand that adversity is a part of life, right? And everybody is going to face adversity at some point or another. Ultimately, what's most important is not the type of adversity that you face, but how you respond to it. And whether you're a child in school or an adult at work, I think having that understanding helps to put things into perspective. When it comes to disability awareness, it's so important that people all around have a general understanding that everybody's different, right? That's what makes the world great. That's what makes the world that's what makes the world special. But if you have an understanding that the people around you have certain strengths that might be different from your own, and other challenges that might look different from yours, ultimately, if you come together and work together as a team, you can make amazing things happen.
Oh, yes. It's always coming together and working together as a team, and that's at the core of it all. So thank you for highlighting that. Eric, on the employment front, we talked about this earlier about, some stats and numbers here, but on the employment front, 15.5% of individuals living with paralysis are employed versus 64% who are not living with a disability. And then additionally, 42% of those living with paralysis indicated they were unable to work. So Eric, what steps have you had to take to ensure your livelihood and properly financially plan for yourself and your family in the situation that you are?
Yeah, I'm honestly, it's when you hear those numbers, it's like very irking, because it's literally life. Somebody cannot support themselves, and the physical, obviously with me, a lot of my physical capabilities were taken away from me. So when this happened to me, I said, what am I going to do with my life? I wanted to finish getting my education, which I was able to graduate from Rutgers, but what did life look like not being able to play in the NFL? I didn't know. But as I started to go, through my journey, people continued to support me and wanted me to share my story. I picked up motivational speaking, learning how to be able to share my story, learning how to be able to, get a message across to a crowd, whether if it's students that I would be able to speak at Dr. Abraham's school, or if it's at corporate, corporate companies and things of that nature. But being able to share that message of overcoming adversity, to then jumping into the foundational side and getting my philanthropic side going and learning more about obviously spinal cord injuries and the paralysis community. And then from there, taking leaps of faith and diving into my coffee business and things like that. So being able to try to have, obviously the resources that I have at hand around me and the connections I've been able to make over the years have definitely helped me. But I just knew that I need to be able to use my mind as much as I can, since I can't have the physical capabilities to even reach up and shake your hand. So it was definitely a challenge, but I never backed away from a challenge, and I've never been afraid to take that leap of faith. So that's kind of how I do it. But I know not everyone has the same resources. So I just try to do the best that I can.
Well, you've done a great job so far, my friend. And just like philosopher Edmund Burke said, he that wrestles with us strengthens our nerves and sharpens our skills. Our antagonist is our helper. Life is the worthy opponent, the antagonist. We all need to grow. And when you have the right tools to overcome adversity, you embrace the situation as a helper rather than letting it stop you from achieving your goals and reaching your dreams. And that's exactly what you've done. So I commend you. Dr. Abaham, as a professor at Rutgers University and an elementary principal, when you encounter a child with any disability in your school, how do you ensure that they get the education that they deserve?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to teacher training and really working closely to ensure that instruction is differentiated and that it's geared to meeting the student's strengths, right? And in today's day and age, it's very different from what education looked like 10 years ago. It's more personalized, but we do a lot of work in preparing teachers who are entering the field of education to be able to do that, and working with teachers that are currently practicing to really personalize the experience, to have great connections with kids, to really, follow their IEPs, but more specifically, just customize the educational approach that they have so that they can ensure that the kid is successful in the classroom.
I love that you're so on top of it because you've taken a millennial approach to this. And I, as a millennial mom, love that you are identifying this very early on in your ecosystem so you could be able to be ahead of the curve, especially with some of these students that will fall through the cracks or statistically nobody will pick up on it. So thank you for being the eyes and ears for those children. It goes a long way and it does not go unnoticed.
It's my pleasure. I think ultimately when teachers love coming to school and students enjoy coming to school, everybody enjoys the learning process. And I think when you're able to customize it, you often find those results.
Well, you've done a great job. Eric and Dr. Abaham, thank you so much for coming on. We are out of time, my dear friends. I just wanted to extend my wishes, my best wishes to you for 2023. Eric, you're doing a fantastic job. Anything that we could do over here at WOR to help promote your foundation, we will. And anytime you want to come on as a guest, it will be our pleasure to refeature you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate you highlighting these special moments and special important things that need to be talked about in life. So thank you so much again.
Yes, without a doubt. Guys, you definitely have to check out Eric LeGrand. You can check out his website, ericlegrand52.com. He's all over the gram at Eric LeGrand52. His coffee business at LeGrand Coffee House, at LeGrand Whiskey, at Team LeGrand. It's all there, but it all starts on his website, ericlegrand52.com. That was our Trailblazers segment. And remember, guys, at the end of the day, statistics and findings reflect the realities of living with a disability and the need for greater discussion on how we can better support the millions of Americans living with paralysis. Over the years, the Reeve Foundation has shared these findings with congressional leaders, corporate executives, members of the media, and other industry authorities to create a swell of advocacy to collectively combat the drivers of inequality and eradicate the obstacles to freedom faced by people living with paralysis. There is tremendous power in these numbers. By demonstrating the sheer impact of paralysis across the nation from a health, societal, and financial perspective, we are creating a framework to keep moving forward, to enhance the quality of life and find cures for paralysis in the here and now. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. That was our Trailblazer segment brought to you by ogpay.com. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes, we have our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by Navé. And today we're featuring Diana Falzone. She's a contributing editor for the Daily Beast, and her past work has been in Vanity Fair, Vice News, Entrepreneur, and BuzzFeed. That's just to name a few. She was a reporter for Fox News Channel and had a popular column on military.com as well. Her stories cover everything from war to entertainment, breaking exclusives, and interviewing some of today's biggest newsmakers. Diana resides in New Jersey with her 5-year-old beautiful son, Alexander, and her new dog, Penelope. We're going to dive right in and explore Diana Falzone today. We're chatting life, career, infertility, and her amazing path to motherhood. Welcome to the show, Stunner.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here, and your kind words. I mean, wow, thank you for that intro.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. You look fantastic and ravishing. We have a lot of common friends. I'm finally excited to be able to feature you. Talk to me, Diana. What was the point in time in your career that you realized that life is so much more than press and hype? How did you start focusing on you?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think I was raised really well by two parents who were not at all in the media industry. Everything was about hard work, integrity, no matter what it was that you chose to do. But the center of it all was having character and having family values. So as much as I always placed career as an important goal of mine, my other most important goal was always to become a mom, always to have a family.
I love that. And motherhood is extremely, extremely rewarding if you know how to navigate it properly. Now, I know you mentioned infertility at some point. Infertility is very much a common problem, actually, in the United States among heterosexual women aged 15 to 49 with no prior births. About 1 in 5, that's about 20%, are unable to get pregnant after 1 year of trying. So we have an estimated 15% of couples that are going to have trouble conceiving. And globally, Diana, this translates to close to 49 million couples will experience infertility. So it's a real thing, okay? Let's segue here. You struggled to get pregnant. How did it all change, and what was that miracle moment for you?
So I actually had something happen where I wasn't trying to get pregnant. What ended up going on was that I was really sick, and I didn't know why I was sick. I was in and out of ERs with debilitating pain, bleeding, and could not get answers. Was told I had a flu, was told I could have a hormonal imbalance. And then it was a specialist that I saw who said, I have a very high suspicion that you might have endometriosis, which affects 1 in 10 women or those born with a uterus in the United States. And that's a big number. That's 200 million globally, worldwide. It's a big number. So then she said, just to be on the safe side, and I wasn't even 33 yet, and I was at the peak of my career, and she said, you know, let's do something called an AMH test. I didn't know what that was. It's an anti-Müllerian hormone test to test the egg reserve, how many eggs you have left. So simple blood test, any lab can do it. And she said, you should be fine. Well, a few days later, she calls me. She said, okay, I really believe that you have endometriosis, but we won't know for sure until we do a laparoscopy, biopsy the tissue. She said, but I have some bad news. You're sitting down. And that was a life-changing moment. And she said, your egg reserve is like a 0.07, which was that of a menopausal woman. And I was floored going back to my biggest goal, becoming a mom one day. And I couldn't understand what that meant. I said, well, what does this mean? And she said, well, you're not sterile. Sterile would mean that you're completely barren, you don't have any eggs, but you have eggs left, but your reserve is so low. The chances of you ever getting naturally pregnant is like zil. And you will need some sort of medical intervention or assistance like IVF, in vitro fertilization. So I ended up undergoing surgery for endometriosis. That was successful to get me out of the pain, also kind of clear me, so to speak, so that I could go through the egg freezing process. And then me and my long-term partner at the time, we decided to embark on doing an embryo transfer, which resulted in having my son, Alexander, who is now about to turn 4.5.
I love this. This is such a beautiful story. He is your miracle baby. I mean, yes, of course. And when you look back, infertility can be caused by uterine or cervical abnormalities, fallopian tube damage, uterine fibroids, endometriosis, like in your case, early menopause, you know, the list goes on and on. But even cancer treatment or severe psychological distress also will affect that, right? But right now we have societal attitudes about women working outside of the home that are gradually shifting. And I'm kind of going to segue to career here. So today, less than 19% of our population agrees that women should return to traditional roles, but 75% disagree. So this is a very big shift from the 80s, right? Where people thought that women should be, staying at home and raising the kids. It's regardless of shifting societal attitudes, mothers in the workplace definitely fear pressure to be successful at work and in parenthood. And the pressure includes accommodating special requests from coworkers and children, such as working longer hours, involvement in school organizations, or participation in your child's extracurricular activities. So it's not easy. How has motherhood changed you, and has it affected your career?
I think it has made me have to really be good with my time. The idea in the past that I could procrastinate or put things off, it's gone. It's like everything is managed down to the minute for me, because as you know, as a mom, it's when they're in daycare, pre-K, or you have someone assisting home with you while you're working, it's like you only have X amount of hours to get most of your work day completed. And then I try to be as hands-on as possible, but with the industry I'm in, if news is breaking and he's in the bath, it doesn't stop. It's also like, here I am on my phone calling sources, trying to get information. He's in a bath, trying to keep him safe. I don't think I have it down pat at all. I just kind of go by the seat of my pants most of the time, depending upon the day. But I think what I really learned is that they're only little ones. And especially this past Christmas, seeing the magic in him and how alive it was. And it was just so beautiful and incredible that I thought to myself, I'm stressing all the time about work, and he's only going to be this little one time, and it's going to fly by, because I can't even remember what it was like when I was, couldn't even sleep for the first 3 years, as I'm sure you can relate.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think women have so much pressure. I mean, I would say, I wouldn't necessarily, it was judgment, but I faced people who say, oh my gosh, you don't stay home, you go to work. And then when you're working, people are like, oh, you have a child. And sometimes I find myself not wanting to tell anyone that my son is homesick from school, because I don't want them to think that I'm not going to be as effective of a colleague. So it is difficult. It's a hard thing to manage.
It's 100%. I couldn't agree more, especially women in media. Both you and I have these, careers in the spotlight, and managing children is not an easy task, but I equate my life to time management. I live in a box, like you said. If it's by every single hour is accounted for, it legitimately, like my husband craves for time with me because I have to slot him in. It's the way it sounds harsh, but it's the truth. So, whether you're a single parent or raising children with other individuals, I always say self-care is definitely necessary to function at your best and provide the best care for your family. All right, let's segue here. So you're a journalist. You're a contributing reporter for the Daily Beast. You've also been seen in Vanity Fair, Vice News, BuzzFeed. These are all big outlets. Your life has been in the spotlight for the most part. If there was a piece of advice that you could give to your younger self, Diana, what would it be?
To just continue to focus on the work and not what others think or say about you. And that there's always going to be a critic, and don't allow that critic to be amplified in your inner head. To just know that as long as you are doing things with the best of intentions, with sincerity, it's based in your truth, especially as a journalist, to just really mute out all the other noise and focus on what you do.
I love it. That's a great piece of advice. Mute out the undernoise. You should coin that. And how would you say that life in the spotlight has changed your life?
See, I always find that I'm at a weird in-between place, right? Because I'm not your school teacher that can live an anonymous life. So you can Google me and find out everything to where I grew up, to my birth date, to all of that fun stuff, to who I even dated in 2009, which, who wants to look back at that? But I'm also not J-Lo famous, so I don't have the protections or the this kind of security that someone like J-Lo would have. So being kind of in this like middle realm of prominence is difficult because it's hard to be a public figure, but still wanting to maintain that privacy so that everyone doesn't look you up and think that they know you in a way that might not necessarily, they're getting the broad strokes. They're not getting the nuance of who you really are. And sometimes they just want someone to meet me and get to know me as a mom on the soccer field, not as someone that they read about or heard about something they reported on and have a very passionate feeling about that topic, and they might be mad at me that I whistle blew about something, and just really get to know me as like, hey, I'm just a mom like you. It's, we're here in the same place in our lives.
I love it. And you know what? It's so important that women in media, but everywhere, stick together, because I always say there's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. It's true. You have to uplift, and we have to uplift each other. And if we don't uplift each other, it's not the men that are going to uplift us. Although I love my husband, I love men in general. I love they're part of a society. We need them, of course. But men, it's like an old boys club. They stick together in ways that they don't necessarily let the females in without strings attached. And those strings could be anything, but I just like to keep my circle tight. So thank you for coming on. You are an absolute inspiration. You achieved your dream. I was going to say, my last question, we have 2 minutes left, is what is your biggest achievement and biggest regret? But your biggest achievement is Alexander. So I can already answer that for you. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on and being so transparent and so open and honest about your experience and your journey and your hardships. And just thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. And I love how you are uplifting women and you are keeping us all together, because like you said, we're a team. We've got to stick together. We've got to be the girls club.
That's right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, you definitely have to check out Diana Falzone, contributing editor at the Daily Beast. That was our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by Navé. And you can definitely check out Diana on the gram at Diana Falzone, or you could go to dailybeast.com for all her juicy reporting. You can also head to navi.travel to check out that amazing portal. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In our Hello Open Metaverse by Animoca Brands, we're chatting with Joseph DeAcetis, men's fashion and style expert, CEO and founder of Potro Menswear. Today, he's joined by Vincent Quan, professor and department chair, fashion business management at FIT SUNY Korea. We're chatting all about where fashion is heading, how far it's come, and how it fits into Web 3.0. The fashion industry is cashing in on the metaverse, using the platform to reach new markets and promote its wares. In last March, the world witnessed the first ever Metaverse Fashion Week. 4 days of runway shows and panel discussions hosted in the 3D virtual world Decentraland. There's a lot of buzz surrounding the metaverse, which I loosely define as a hyper-interactive, creative digital environment where people work, play, socialize, and now shop. While the metaverse itself remains in its infancy, there's plenty of interest in its potential. For brands and for the broader fashion industry, it could well offer new opportunities to engage Gen Z and other tech-savvy younger consumers. Case in point, Gucci Garden in the Roblox gaming metaverse saw 19 million visitors. Other fashion players are eyeing the $180 billion gaming industry, which attracts more than 3 billion players globally each year, especially given the appeal of engaging with and building communities in games and other virtual worlds. There's definitely gold in them digital hills. And here to chat fashion and metaverse are my experts at hand, Joseph DeAcetis and Vincent Quan. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Lots of amazing things taking place in the metaverse. Vincent, I will start with you. Okay, so
Sure.
let's look at it overall. Gaming is increasingly an extension of the real world, and with the pandemic supercharging participation, it's become a prime target for fashion brands. All right, Ralph Lauren, for instance, partnered with South Korean social network app Zepeto to create a virtual fashion collection where users could dress their avatars in exclusive products or appearance altering, what we call skins. What do you say to this? And is there actual profit for brands to be made in the metaverse?
Well, I'll be frank with you. I'm a slight gamer myself, and when you put on skins, it's who you are. So having the ability actually to, use or buy different digital versions of skins is a huge advantage. And for the branded world, it creates an entirely new revenue stream from physical to digital. And if you can think of it from that perspective, it's no wonder why, especially the luxury brands, have pushed forth. Historically, luxury brands always go first in terms of the innovation, and from that perspective, they've seen the results of such forays through NFTs, skins, avatars, and other digital assets that have been now sold via the metaverse.
Amazing that you brought that up, because I'm going to be talking about NFTs in just a bit. But and it's true for the right now, for the most part, digital fashion is mainly being used as a marketing tool to really redirect attention to actual goods by fashion brands. But the potential is limitless. Joseph, artificial intelligence and augmented reality could open up opportunities for new business models that leverage virtual fashion. You know this better than anyone else. Technology that allows for 360-degree view has already been used to present seasonal collections through online showrooms, and avatars of models have walked 3D virtual runways. Where is fashion heading, and could brands be overlooking a huge demographic and generation by not jumping into the metaverse?
Where brands headed, first of all, is where there's it's a global universe now, and through the internet, and the AI and the avatars have made it much more interesting. It's ignited a new audience, and that audience, for the most part, is the Gen Z audience. And fashion brands should, in my opinion, become part of this, because it's the wave of the future. Seeing the clothing 360, even on an avatar, I believe it's Bella Hadid made an avatar now. You know, she was the one that recently wore the spray-on dress. So there's an avatar of her now. A lot of celebrities are joining on board. Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, even Pharrell has done a virtual reality sneaker that it's an NFT. You can buy pieces of that sneaker. Or Chris Brown, it's one of the best-selling Nike sneakers overnight in the millions of dollars with an NFT.
Phenomenal, just fantastic where we're headed. And ultimately, gentlemen, I think the interesting question isn't really about profit, but more about how the metaverse might radically affect the way consumers dress, shop, and really think about fashion. You know, will we all end up wandering around Blade Runner style virtual cities, clad in winged dresses and tentacle headpieces? I don't know, but definitely there's a lot of buzz right now, and people want to jump on board. Let's go back to NFTs. Vincent, non-fungible tokens, or what we call NFTs, are one aspect of virtual environments that have seen an explosion of interest. NFTs are unique crypto assets whose authenticity and ownership are verified on blockchains and are bought, sold, and exchanged in the metaverse, often with cryptocurrency. And if you look at stats back in 2021, although this isn't fashion related, but still very much art world related, an NFT created by digital artist Mike Winkelmann, also known as Beeple, was sold at Christie's auction house for a record breaking $69.3 million. So For the fashion world, if you look at in comparison, right now, NFTs can provide real use cases. They can be used to authenticate products or serve as collectible pieces in their own right. And in the past year, there's been a wave of engagement. I mean, particularly among luxury players and via the gaming universe, which you're familiar with. Louis Vuitton launched a video game with collectible NFTs, partially designed by people for its 200th anniversary. Vincent, talk to me. Why is the fashion industry suddenly trying to appeal to gamers?
Look, there's physical and there's digital, as we had stated before. And if you consider this whole new frontier, we'll call it, the metaverse and its related digital assets, it propels any brand to consider a brand new, totally from scratch, zero revenue stream. You can create, and art and fashion always have gone hand in hand. To a certain degree, NFT, aside from people, the NFTs in terms of art have a place in a person's portfolio or a person's wallet, digital wallet. And the point being that these fashion brands are seeing it, they're testing it, they're cautious, okay, and the other players are sitting on the sidelines waiting and watching to see the result. The most important thing is it's going to take time as more and more consumers latch on to this new frontier, the metaverse, and its related digital assets, but it's promising.
It's very promising. Yeah. And the metaverse is also, to Joseph's point, changing the way we understand fashion. Now you can move freely between different 3D worlds and communities with the help of virtual and augmented reality. I mean, how fascinating is that? And currently it's being used as a catch-all term to describe everything from luxury labels teaming up with game developers to outfit players. I mean, listen, think Balenciaga and Fortnite, think Ralph Lauren and Roblox, or Lacoste and Minecraft. These are the types of offerings that we're seeing appeal to the newer generation. And it's also increasingly covering brand experimentation in hybrid collections, like Dolce & Gabbana's 9-piece physical digital capsule show last year made nearly $6 million. I mean, this is nothing the fashion industry's ever seen before. So, Joseph, I'm going to ask you this question. Digital designs are not yet big earners compared to physical clothing, because that's still fact, right? Look at Dolce & Gabbana.
Right.
They still reported overall sales of more than $1 billion between 2020 and 2021. And that was still, they were hampered by racism scandals and the pandemic. They still came out winning. But the fashion world certainly sees the metaverse as a potential lucrative new market, like you mentioned. And digital fashion industry could be worth $50 billion by the year 2030. So the overall worth of the fashion sector by the end of the decade, according to market intelligence platform CB Insights, places it at more than $3 trillion. You are the CEO of a men's clothing line called Potro. Do you see your brand heading into the metaverse?
I do. And there's several reasons I do. One is that the metaverse is not only, if you talk about revenue, that's one stream that we can talk about, but there's also brand awareness with the metaverse, and that's global. So the brand awareness counts for reaching customers that could not be reached otherwise. So certainly, and when I launched Potro, being I was the fashion director at Forbes, it's really a great question that you asked me, because I photographed Matthew Rosedock, who's the CEO and founder of Coinbase, and I asked him, when I was so interested in our conversations, I asked him if I could make an NFT of Potro, and this has to be at least 5 years ago. It was way before, and it was just a simple conversation, but it kept my mind racing. And I pushed back on it. Like Vincent said, brands are not going to jump on immediately until they see what's happening before them. You're going to see the brands and designers that jump onto this first. It's like the market, and then see if it's trending up, and then other brands will do it. I certainly see a future in creating AI and avatars in the metaverse for Potro and branding it out that way. And also, one last thing I believe about the metaverse and branding a collection such as Potro, which is a menswear brand, a mid-tier luxury brand, is that after a certain extent, consumers are overwhelmed with celebrity faces and endorsements an avatar can be, it takes it to a new place. And that avatar can be, he could be trending towards sustainability, which will reach to the consumers. He could be trending to different styles and almost have superpower heroes, superpower forces in him to bring the consumer in.
Yeah, I love the way you just put that. There's so many incredible use cases and ways of engaging with the community. You know, if you look at what Vincent just touched upon, the NFTs, physical garments can be authenticated as NFTs and have a digital twin. So garments minted as NFTs, which we call these non-fungible tokens, are digital assets registered with unique data stored on the blockchain. And this means that even though an image of a virtual dress could be seen or even saved by anyone on the internet, the person who purchased it, whether as a unique one-off or part of a limited run, can prove their ownership and subsequently sell or trade it, with the value increasing or decreasing just as with a physical garment. So this is completely revolutionary. We have about 2 minutes. Vincent, any closing thoughts on this?
Yeah, the other comment I'd make about digital assets is they're forever. Clothing has a lifespan. It degrades, it breaks down, it fades, it goes out of style, et cetera, and comes back into style. But digital assets last a lifetime. So you own a property, and talk about sustainability, that is out there, yes, in the metaverse, but it's yours to have and to own for a lifetime unless you sell it. And it can be resold and recorded via the blockchain. So great things coming forth on the metaverse and fashion.
Yeah, that's some good food for thought there. Well, listen, we are at the end of our segment, my dear friends. Thank you so much for coming on. Vincent, what a pleasure. Joseph, you know how I feel about you.
Thank you so much, Xenia. Thank you for having us.
Well, listen, guys, we're not getting rid of real fashion anytime soon. Not everyone is going to be enthused by the idea of dressing an avatar or buying a jacket that doesn't exist. People do still need clothes to wear to work, to go out, to live their corporal lives. However, the metaverse potentially holds interesting solutions to some of the more real-world problems created by the fashion industry, especially, as Vincent put it, when it comes to sustainability. That was our Hello Open Metaverse segment, brought to you by Animoca Brands. Check out Joseph DeAcetis' line at Potro.com, and you can also check him out on the gram at shop.potro, and definitely check out his column at stylelujo.com. Now, you definitely have to check out Vincent Quan on the other side of the world at vincentgquan.com, or on social media at Vincent Quan. And you could head to fitnyc.edu to check out all the cool stuff that he's doing as a professor at the Institute. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Metropolitan Lifestyle segment, brought to you by Metropolitan Magazine. We're chatting with the amazing Joseph DeAcetis, men's fashion and style expert, CEO and founder of Potro.com. Today, he's joined by Vincent Quan, professor and department chair at FIT SUNY Korea. Today, we're chatting all about fashion trends and where we are headed in 2023. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you, Zen.
All right. Joseph, let's start with you. We've had some crazy fashion patterns and fashion trends take place in 2022. 2023 seems like it's a whole new vibe. You do this as a living. You are the expert. Tell us, where are we heading? What are the new fashion trends?
Well, there's men's and women's. We'd have to divide up first, but For women, first of all, there's color trends, and the color trends are really bold. They're going from bold and pastels. We have the gamut. So there's colors such as fuchsia, which is really big for the first offset of 2023. Fuchsia is really big, and green is big as well. A solid green. And green, they say, is in because mankind, green and blues are in because mankind wants to get back to nature. We're in this digital world, and we're very attracted to the colors of nature. So green for the forest and blue for the sea, of course. Neutrals are in, pastels are in. For women's wear, a big trend is mini skirts. The micro mini is back, and the micro skirt is back, showing a lot of leg for spring 2023. There's also elevated utility, which is like you would have like instead of a jumpsuit, a satin jumpsuit, silk satin jumpsuit, or instead of cargo pants for women, you would have sheer cargo pants with interesting modified utility pockets. Utility is really big as well, and I could go on forever, so I'm sure Vincent wants to chime in.
Hey, Vincent, what are your thoughts here from across the globe? You do this all day, every day.
We do it all day, every day. We watch what people wear, and we do competitive shopping all the time. But Joseph's dead on, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention the color of the year for Pantone, which is Viva Magenta. It's a crimson red, and you can look for it as early as this spring right now, coming on, in stores and online. And certainly that's just one area where the trends are going. The other interesting point, to couple in tandem with what Joseph said regarding hemlines, there's a hemline index. I don't know if you're familiar with it, theory that says as the country goes into recession, hemlines go one way, and if it's a robust economy, hemlines go the other way. So I'd be interested to see as the economy develops into early 2023, which direction the hemlines are going to go, and if it does indeed mirror the hemline index theory.
This makes me so nervous right now. We're gonna have a whole bunch of scantily clad people running around. This cannot be good.
Well, look, then sheer, right?
Sheer is in. I'll be one of them.
Well, sheer and micro minis and micro shorts it makes people happy to see that walking around. So that is an uplift of the fashion going into spring 2023. It's really on trend.
And with that said, that basically means that the consumer and hopefully everyone's optimistic about the 2023 year and this coming quarter. And that means hopefully that the world and the U.S. will avoid recession. And that's what it means. So we hope that is indeed correct and the hemline index remains intact.
I love how this just ended. And of course, talking about WOR listeners, we're all about checking those trends for politics. And of course, if you could tie it into fashion, well, we'll take it.
I also think, if I can interject, is sustainability is what we're calling the hybrid sustainability. And also the pop-ups, we're calling them hybrid pop-ups now. Pop-ups have QR codes that you could scan and cameras or videos that you can make your own video, which also creates brand awareness by the consumer putting that on social media. And even as low as, I shouldn't say low, but not luxury, as a pair of Levi's or Wrangler jeans being made sustainably and having sustainable attributes to them. And as we talked before about NFTs and full disclosure, you can see where that cotton was grown and how that cotton was grown, and if it is sustainable all the way through the packaging of the product, and of course the manufacturing of the product. So I think sustainability, eco-friendly, is a big trend for 2023 with the consumers, especially the Gen Z consumer. That's who the world's being left to after, and younger. So there's a big push for these companies, manufacturers, and packaging to be sustainable.
Well, without a doubt. Well said. I'm so happy that you correlated the two together.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
to add to Joseph's point, if you wouldn't mind, the bigger challenge with sustainability is really, honestly, the integrity of what sustainability is. It's extremely difficult right now to trace, comments made on a hang tag that this was created from sustainable fibers. And I think the industry and the world has to do a better job of really identifying a standard by which you can trace every element along the supply chain through the blockchain.
Mhm.
But that will take a while, frankly speaking. And the world has got a ways to go on that.
Well, that's
We
a
won't
great
mention the
use
term
case.
greenwashing.
No, you're right, but that's a great use case of the blockchain, and that's where we are headed. So we will be able to track this on a verifiable, via verifiable ledgers, and there will be no riffraff and feudalism and bad actors in between telling you that something is, organically sourced and information that's later on you disprove, right? So you never know where your products are coming from. We just did a segment on made in the USA and the importance of buying American made products. Not that it should be across the board for all fashion brands, but if you do look at the economy, when you look at the way that the buying patterns are, and that now you could purchase absolutely anything on the internet from across the world to different continents and different currencies, and you have these super apps that are just checking you out, right? And you can basically buy anything you want instantly 24/7. We've seen a huge shift. This is where now you're catering to a different demographic, but you're also looking at the blockchain, and you're looking at who can you reach? You have 1.7 billion people in this world that are unbanked and or underbanked. But you know what they all have? They all have a smartphone. And those 1.7 billion people that don't have access to credit card, a social security number, all have access now to a banking app on their phone. And a lot of these gamers in third world countries are making $5 a day. Now, $5 a day to you and me might not mean anything, but to somebody in Southeast Asia, in Venezuela, a woman feeding her family, $5 a day is a lot of money. So when they cash in their tokens, these gamers, and they cash in their tokens and they convert their tokens on the blockchain to fiat currency simply with the use of a smartphone through these fintech super apps, now they could purchase anything. They just became a target customer for you. Now you could sell them skins. Ralph Lauren could now reach the impoverished, but guess what? If they buy the skins and they look cooler in their game, they advance in the levels. So it's almost like this soft dance between the brands, the consumers, the gamers, and it all kind of works together in what we were calling the rise of the creator economy, where you don't need governments to come and intervene and give people the approval of, yes, you can have this bank account, or no, you cannot. This is power to the people, essentially.
Absolutely. And, a friend of mine lost, of course, with Bitcoin, which was at 50 something or 39 maybe, and now it's down to 16. But he lost all his money there. He left his money in there in the Bitcoin, but where he gained was in Ethereum. He bought NFTs, and he bought one design that was that Pharrell had a part of. It wasn't the full design that was Pharrell's, but he has made a significant amount of revenue by these NFTs. He lost everywhere else in just the simple investing of Bitcoin, but he gained tremendously in purchasing these NFTs or pieces of the final product.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's a whole new world out there, definitely evolving, still in its infancy. But what we know is that Web3, it will be the new iteration of the internet. At this point right now, we have to follow it carefully. We want to advocate for regulation, and we also want to have as much inclusion as possible so that everybody could see and sit at the table and be part of a brand's growth. And that will be very, very easy to do in Web3 versus Web 1 and 2. We are out of time, my dear friends. Vincent, what a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you. Joseph, thank you for bringing on a dear friend, and hopefully I can have you guys on soon again.
Okay, great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sen, and have a happy, healthy one. And we look forward to connecting on on email and otherwise.
Absolutely. You got it. That was our Metropolitan Lifestyle segment brought to you by Metropolitan Magazine. Do check out Joseph DeAcetis at Potro.com. You can also head to the gram at shop.potro and check out his style column at stylelujo.com. Definitely check out Vincent Quan on the gram at Vincent Quan, on his website at vincentgquan.com, or you could head to fitnyc.edu for all the cool stuff he's doing as a professor over there at the Institute. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. Up in just a few minutes, we have the Scandals segment brought to you by Revere Securities. And today we're chatting with Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Kamins, otherwise known as ABK Law, right here in New York City. He's also a regular contributor and legal analyst on Law and Crime and Court TV. Today, we're chatting about the latest developments on Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho murders. Bryan Kohberger has been officially charged with first-degree murder and burglary for the killings of 4 University of Idaho students. Roommates Xana, Kaylee, and Madison, as well as Xana's boyfriend, Ethan, were all stabbed to death in the girls' home between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. back on November 13th. 2 other roommates survived. Bryan Kohberger, who is 28, was arrested on December 30th in his home state of Pennsylvania. He was a PhD student in Washington State's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at the time and was visiting his family in Pennsylvania over winter break. Authorities zeroed in on him in part by comparing DNA found at the crime scene with DNA of a relative of Kohberger's apparently obtained from the family's home trash. In my opinion, it is far too early to judge the strength of the prosecution's case, but the role DNA has already played has drawn renewed attention to broader issues around the uses and limits of this technology and scientific evidence more generally in the criminal legal system. Here to chat Idaho murders and where this case is heading is the amazing Imran Ansari. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Zen.
Okay, the big question. Do you think he did it, and is the evidence at hand enough to put him away?
Well, of course, Zen, any defendant enjoys the constitutional right and a presumption of imminent innocence before they are convicted in court or they enter a guilty plea. But the evidence, in my opinion, seems to be mounting against Bryan Kohberger, which led to his arrest. And of course, you mentioned that DNA evidence. That DNA evidence is going to be very key, Zen. This was a match based on a sample that was found at his Pennsylvania home to a sample taken from a knife sheath that was found inside the location where these murders happened. That match is going to be critical. And I think that there are probably prosecutors, that is, gearing up to take a sample from Bryan Kohberger himself. They're going to run that through a DNA test and database, and they're going to have a match, I presume, with that sheath sample and Bryan Kohberger. That is very critical evidence against Bryan Kohberger. Also, Zen, we have the cell phone data, the pinging of his cell phone, not near the location because they're alleging that he had the wherewithal to turn his phone off, but on a route going to the house and then away from the house. And also, Zen, I got to point that out. If, in fact, Bryan Kohberger turned off his cell phone to avoid cell phone data tracking, that also could be a consciousness of guilt that he knew he wanted to turn that off. Keep in mind, he is someone who has been studying criminology and justice. He wanted to turn that off so he could not be tracked. But of course, Zen, there is that evidence against him, including also that roommate who saw a figure, a shadowy figure that may have matched the description of Bryan Kohberger physically.
Just crazy stuff. So, okay, let me go back to this. So 4 a.m. on November 13th, this masked man breaks into a house about a mile from the University of Idaho campus and stabs 4 students. Then he walks past this stunned surviving roommate and left. And by the time police arrived, Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan, 2 21-year-old best friends, and Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle, 2 20-year-olds that were dating, were just basically dead, stabbed to death. But early on in the investigation, the Moscow Police Department became interested in the white Hyundai Elantra that surveillance footage had captured near the house that morning. And police compiled lists of white Hyundai Elantra spanning from 2011 to 2016 that were registered at local universities and instructed officers to search for this car. And now an affidavit, to my understanding, that was released on November 29, just 2 weeks after the crime, these techniques succeeded in identifying a 2015 Elantra registered to Brian Koberger. So at this point, my question to you is, with all this mounting evidence that you just pointed out, with the cell phone pings and the Hyundai Elantra and the DNA found in the knife sheath, my question is, how do they put this guy away with no motive nor a murder weapon?
Sure. So Zen, of course, and you made a great point by pointing out that Hyundai Elantra. That, of course, is another piece of evidence that could be linking Brian Koberger to the murders. But you got to remember that, in a murder case, a homicide case, you don't always find the murder weapon. What is the first thing that we see those who have committed a murder do? They get rid of the murder weapon. So, it's often that you don't necessarily have the instrument that may have caused someone's death. But you have to also look on another level here, which is intriguing, to say the least, which is the criminal mind and the psychology behind these murders. And if, in fact, Brian Koberger was the person who committed these murders, his psychiatric state. And what do I mean by that? You can see someone who's studying this line of work, right? Criminology, justice, and also has, a background with psychology in this realm of criminal justice. And think about what he does. He posts on Reddit that study seeking to get information from those who may have committed crimes, and uses certain pointed language in these questions that he describes as a study for his research. He asks, how did you achieve your goals, right? That's a very key word to use, a goal. A goal is normally, Zen, something that is positive, right? You're going to achieve a goal. If you want to dissect the mindset of Brian Koberger, what is he referring to as a goal there is a criminal act. So you have this really intriguing psychiatric background. You hear about his background as a high school student, as someone who was younger. He was a bully, and then he was also someone who bullied. You get this really intriguing psychological mindset that is going to be studied by prosecutors, by expert witnesses, to find the motive, if any, right? You may not have a motive, and prosecutors don't have to prove a motive. But I think that there is a deep psychological background to this. He's been described as possibly having incel personality disorder or something like that. And that's going to be part of the prosecution's case to really link why Brian Koberger may have committed these murders, allegedly.
Okay. So thanks for that clarification. But I want to go back and chat DNA, because this is where everything is residing on. So the approach used to identify Koberger is just one of several recent developments in DNA analysis that have transformed the way law enforcement investigates crimes. But while these advancements present tremendous potential for law enforcement and criminal investigations, burgeoning new areas of forensic analysis also have shortcomings that underscore the need to proceed with caution and recognize that not all technological advancements are foolproof. So what do you say to this? Will the DNA recovered in this case and in the knife sheath left behind be sufficient?
So Zen, when I was a prosecutor, I was actually in charge for my bureau as presenting the cases for indictment to grand juries based on DNA evidence. I was the designated DNA guy, if you will, and I got, I would say, possibly hundreds of indictments based on matches of DNA evidence. And then an arrest would be made either after that match, called an X indictment, or before the match, if there was the DNA evidence was had at the time of the arrest. So my point is that I would present cases, I would describe the accuracy of DNA, and I can tell you DNA technology in the criminal justice world is very, very strong. You don't have necessarily, a match as strong as what they are saying they had here. And I'll tell you what match they had. They found evidence outside the Koberger residence, and they matched the DNA on the knife sheath to the paternal sample, right? So there was a paternal sample, meaning Koberger's father that they
right.
matched it with. So that's his father, but that DNA travels down to Brian Koberger. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I believe prosecutors and law enforcement are going to be taking a direct sample. And I'm doing this because normally they take a swab from the mouth, but they're going to do a direct sample from Brian Koberger with that knife sheath sample. And I expect they're going to have a match.
Wow. So, okay, so let's go back. So DNA analysis is, of course, a revolution in forensics, but like every form of scientific evidence, it has the potential for error. And I'm going to stress this. But at its best, DNA testing can tell you, whose genes were found in a particular location, but it can't tell you how they got there. So an innocent person's DNA might be found at a crime scene because they brushed against the victim on the street, used the same doorknob as the perpetrator, or dropped a cigarette butt nearby.
Right.
That's my concern, because they're going to try to take this apart every which way they can. So I'm hoping that he gets put away based on this, because this guy is twisted, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, let's hope that this is strong enough. But let's go to the footprint, right? So now we know that there was a footprint found inside the home, and this could help police build their case beyond the initial probable cause affidavit. However, its value may depend really on what else detectives find with a series of search warrants followed by his arrest. Now, more than 2,500 miles from the crime scene, you have to see the removal of where, how many weeks have lapsed and how much time has gone by. But in this probable cause affidavit released, investigators revealed that a shoe print found at the crime scene had a sole pattern that resembled that of a Vans sneaker. How important is this shoe print?
The shoe print is going to be an important piece of evidence if it's in fact matching up with Brian Koberger's shoe size, if they find actually a similar shoe when they execute search warrants. You got to also keep in mind, though, that this house was a house of college students. They had parties, they had a lot of people going in and out and things like that, and that would be some arguments to maybe diminish that. But if there is a similarity, that's sort of the death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. And I don't mean that in any insensitive pun. What I mean by that is that there is pieces of evidence that the prosecution can link together and connect those dots. And when you connect dots of circumstantial evidence or forensic evidence, and you're able to hone in on the defendant, well, that's getting to proving your case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if that Vans shoe print, if they could somehow connect that either in size or actually with a shoe that they recover from Brian Koberger, well, that is another piece of evidence that could be mounting and connecting to place him at the scene of the crime and link him arguably to these murders.
Yeah. Okay, very quickly. We have about 2 minutes left. This is such a disturbing case for me. I've never followed a case so closely and been more obsessed with the details, because I want this man put in jail. But I mean, me and everybody else around. But it doesn't matter what I feel. It matters that justice is served, because these 4 families are suffering. Now, one thing that we don't have answers to is how he knew these girls. That's the big mystery still. So a surviving roommate told police that she saw this masked man with bushy eyebrows walk by her on his way out of the back door after hearing a series of alarming sounds. She told detectives that she thought she heard one of the girls say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." She looked out her door, saw nothing, and then told police she thought she heard crying from Kernodle's room. Then she said she heard a male voice, something to the effect of, "I'm going to help you." She opened the door again and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered this person's mouth. And she just told investigators that she saw a male, athletic build, but not muscular, about 5 feet 10 inches tall with bushy eyebrows. But she does not call police for 8 hours. Will the defense team ride this?
Yeah, perhaps. That is, first, that description, Zen, is such a haunting description when, have these pieces of what she's able to hear coming from these other rooms. What sounds to be, at the time that these individuals are supposed to be murdered. It's very haunting, that account, and that shadowy figure. I mean, that's terrifying.
And you don't call police? And you don't call police?
That's the thing, and, I believe even law enforcement have been baffled as to why police were not called earlier. And there's some skepticism, or I should say speculation, as to why that may have been. Was there intoxication involved? Was, a passage of time, someone sleeping and not, there's all these theories of why that may have occurred. I don't think we have the answer quite yet. But what we do know is that is another piece of evidence that's going to be either used for the prosecution's benefit, this description. But could the defense attorney somehow exploit that to their advantage? I mean, it's very early on. We're going to have to see how the defense theory unfolds as we get more information.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're out of time. Thank you so much for piping in and coming on to discuss this. I know that we're not going to hear anything about this case again until their next court appearance, which is set for June 26th. But between now and then, we'll be watching closely and definitely be doing as much coverage as we can as more evidence comes out and more theories are surfacing. But thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Zen. Always great to be on with you.
Absolutely. Guys, listen, Kohberger faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and a felony burglary charge for allegedly entering the house with the intent to kill. Authorities have not publicly disclosed a potential motive. That was our scandal segment brought to you by Revere Securities, and that was the incredible Imran Ansari. You can head directly to their website, idalalaw.com, or you could head to the Instagram profile and check out Imran for all his incredible coverage on not just this, but all kinds of crime stories at Imran Ansari ESQ. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m., or you could head to 710wr.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen. Also remember that we're now live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. and on YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV streaming platform. You could head to our channel at mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this happen. And of course, remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.